Welcome back to Inside the System. I'm Jasmine Logan, and I'm joined by Emeritus Political Science Professor Dr. David Canervo. Today we'll be covering news in American politics relating to President Zelensky's visit to the White House, how Americans are being affected by inflation, and some new laws introduced here in Tennessee, so stay tuned. A heated Oval Office exchange seemingly derailed an agreement between the United States and Ukraine. The Ukrainian president departed the White House early as negotiations went south. President Donald Trump told Zelensky to return when he wants peace. Julia Benbrook is bringing us the details from Washington.
This is the first time we've seen President Donald Trump and Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky meet face-to-face since Trump took office. And the two leaders exchanged some sharp words in their sit-down meeting. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky arrived at the White House Friday for high-stakes talks with President Donald Trump about the war in Ukraine. After sitting down in the Oval Office, an astonishing exchange. The two world leaders shouting at one another.
Your country is in big trouble. Wait a minute. No. You've done a lot of talking. Your country is in big trouble.
I know.
You're not winning. You're not winning this.
Part of today's goal was to sign an agreement that would give the U.S. access to Ukraine's rare earth minerals in exchange for what Ukraine hoped would be concrete security guarantees.
You're not in a good position. You don't have the cards right now. With us, you start having cards.
It's been 3 years now since Russia's full-scale invasion of Ukraine. And just a few weeks ago, U.S. leaders held talks with Russian leaders about a peace agreement. But Ukraine was not included in those talks.
Well, if I didn't align myself with both of them, you'd never have a deal. You want me to say really terrible things about Putin and then say, "Hi, Vladimir, how are we doing on the deal?" That doesn't work that way.
Zelensky departed early with no deal and no press conference. Trump posting on social media that Zelensky had, quote, disrespected the United States and was not, quote, ready for peace. Both French President Emmanuel Macron and British Prime Minister Keir Starmer visited the White House this week as well. Both of those leaders stressed the need for security guarantees for Ukraine to ensure Russia keeps its promises if there is a peace agreement. At the White House, I'm Julia Benbrook.
Dr. Canervo, what was your reaction to this conflict at the White House meeting?
Well, actually, I was appalled. In all the years that I've been following politics, I had never seen anything really quite like this, with the president and the vice president essentially telling another foreign leader what to do, what to think, what to say. It's as if Trump and Vance had planned this kind of as a hit on Zelensky, and rather than asking Zelensky what he thought or what he wanted to have happen to Ukraine, or what they thought would be what he thought would be a good solution for peace, he was simply essentially told to sign the document and shut up. And that's really not, to me, the way you run negotiations or foreign diplomacy. It was disappointing to me to see that.
I agree. I was a little caught off guard by the tone of the content that we saw from the meeting, at least. And like you said, I don't think I've ever seen a president handle foreign diplomacy quite like that. And I guess I'm interested how you think this could affect some of our other foreign diplomatic relationships.
It's almost like Zelensky was not told what the format of the meeting would be, and what the sequence of events would be in the meeting. You know, it's one thing had he been brought in, asked to sign the document fairly soon, giving minerals to the United States in exchange for support, but that's not what happened. And I think he was expecting there to be some dialogue about what he wanted on behalf of Ukraine to come out of the negotiations at the end point, rather than just simply deal with the signing of the document. You know, Russia has already been consulted about what they want.
Yes.
And no one, at least on the American side, has really talked with Zelensky about what he thinks Ukraine should receive.
Why do you think that is?
Well, I think on the one hand, Trump wants to please Putin as much as possible, and that Trump doesn't see Zelensky as someone who's very important, frankly.
Well, that's unfortunate. You know, our country has been playing a big role in helping Ukraine fight this war and, you know, keep the territory that they have at the moment. So, you know, it's been interesting seeing how this new administration is handling this ongoing conflict.
Sure. You know, it's one thing to say you want to have peace and to end the war and negotiate so that both sides give up something in order to reach an agreement. But this seems very one-sided to me, with Putin essentially getting what he wants and Zelensky's desires and the desires of the Ukrainian people being to a great degree ignored.
I agree, and that's not typically how foreign negotiations are supposed to go. And I've noticed that President Trump seems to have a similar stance when it comes to the Israel-Hamas conflict, you know, saying that the Palestinians should just relocate and leave that land behind and let Israel kind of take over it, let America take over it. So I think it's really interesting.
Yeah, that's a real issue, and I think that's a good simile. What I think about is, what if Putin were to say to Trump, you know, the deal by which you bought Alaska from us back in the 1800s was a ripoff of the Soviet Union, of Russia. It wasn't the Soviet Union at that time.
Yeah.
But it was a ripoff of Russia. It was not a good deal, was not a just deal, and we want Alaska back.
I don't think our president would like that very much.
Well, I wonder what he would do.
Yeah.
And if people then said, well, if you don't give it back, you're threatening World War III.
That would definitely be a tough position to be in. I think a lot of people probably don't think it through on that level when it comes to this issue with Ukraine and Russia. I feel like there are probably Americans that are of the opinion that they don't want to get involved in the conflict and potentially spark a war, right? But I do believe that what is happening to the Ukrainians is unfair. Like you just pointed out, you can't sell something to someone and then say, actually, no, give it back to me, and use force as a means to do so. That just doesn't work well, in my opinion.
Yeah. It seems to me that Trump has a reason to want to negotiate. Obviously, he wants to get a peace prize out of this, he hopes, for his own glory and ego. But you don't do it by telling the victim, the Ukrainians, exactly what they have to do.
I agree. I understand that America has a vested interest in the minerals at Ukraine and the oil and I believe petroleum in Gaza, but pushing the victims out of those spaces is not the way to go about obtaining those resources. And that's why we have diplomacy, and that's why it's important to have those peaceful, professional negotiations. And we're going to have a lot more to say about this as these conflicts progress, but we'll be right back after this short break to discuss how Americans are responding to the current state of the economy.
College life can be challenging, but everyone at Austin Peay should have access to success no matter what the obstacles. Whether it's workshops, support, or just someone to talk to, the Student Disability Resource Center is there to help students overcome their challenges and experience college life to the fullest. Don't go it alone. The Student Disability Resource Center is there to help you. You'll find the center in room 114 in the Morgan UC, or call them at 221-7777. 221-7777. A campus reminder from APSU-TV.
The black truck? Hey, Christina from accounting.
Yeah, hi.
Hey, I used to date a girl named Christina.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and then she dumped me for my best friend. You want to see some photos of them that I took?
I don't.
I thought we talked about this, buddy.
Buzzed and overshared again?
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm gonna call a car.
That's a smart idea.
So yeah, I know, that's why I did it.
Hey, you're gonna get back to the top of the mountain.
Does that mean I'm gonna get back with Christina?
No.
Oh.
No.
The Federal Reserve's preferred inflation gauge cooled as expected last month. But the good news came with a potential red flag
Typically,
for the US
after the
economy.
holidays,
consumers pulled back their spending by the most in nearly 4 years. Ivan Rodriguez breaks down the numbers and what Americans can expect.
Typically, after the holidays, consumer spending suffers from a hangover in the new year. But newly released Commerce Department data shows consumers pulled back far more in January than economists expected. Spending fell 0.2% from December. Adjusting for inflation, spending sank 0.5%. Those are the biggest monthly drops since February 2021.
In here in the coffee shop, you hear people talking about, are we going to be able to afford to get a car loan? Are we going to be able to afford to buy eggs?
The cost of food, especially eggs, along with energy, pushed up prices for consumers and producers last month.
I think a lot of people, it's like anything else, you're just hoping that your costs don't increase more.
The average cost of a dozen eggs in January was $4.95, almost double the price from a year ago and surpassing a record high, according to data from the Bureau of Labor Statistics.
As long as you can stabilize your costs and forecast what they're going to be, then you can kind of adjust everything else around it. But when all of a sudden, like the last few years, when it's just like, when you get these massive surges in costs, it's tough.
Certain signals also indicated the economy is softening. GDP growth is slowing, business investment is sluggish, and consumers are growing pessimistic on fears that inflation will pick up, primarily because of President Trump's talks of tariffs, according to various surveys. I'm Ivan Rodriguez reporting.
As experts study inflation and the economy, an activist group called for a nationwide boycott last Friday, the 28th, and what they described as an economic blackout. The organization called the People's Union USA asked American consumers not to spend money for 24 hours. The group's website says it has no political affiliation. Instead, they are focused on fairness, economic justice, and real systematic change. Dr. Canervo, it is undeniable that American consumers are worried about the rising prices. What can be done to combat this inflation?
Well, the traditional solution to inflation is what happened under Ronald Reagan and presidents both before and after him. And that is that you put the economy into at least a little bit of a recession so that you decrease the demand on products. And if you decrease the demand, then the prices won't rise at least as much. We know that one of the things that increases prices is, of course, the law of supply and demand.
Of course.
The more demand, the higher the prices that you can charge and get away with it. So unfortunately, while it's going to be a hardship for a lot of people, it seems to me decreasing the demand is going to be the way to do it. One of the ways of decreasing demand is limiting government spending. Another way is for people to lose their jobs.
Yeah.
So that, which he's doing.
Exactly.
So that people will not have as much money to spend. The problems I guess I see with all that is it's going to cause pain for those who lose their jobs, of course. And with the advent of tariffs, that's simply going to add an increase to the prices up front.
Exactly.
And so it's not clear to me that we're moving in the right direction. And on top of the tariffs, of course, we're going to have apparently a tax cut, primarily for the wealthy. But a tax cut for anybody, even middle class or upper middle class, means that they'll have more money to spend to increase demand.
Exactly.
What concerns me is that we should be moving more toward a balanced budget. One of the ways of doing that is to increase taxes on the wealthy, particularly the very wealthy, because they can afford it.
Yeah.
And I don't see that happening.
I agree. We have probably one of the wealthiest people in the world leading our Department of Government Efficiency. So, you know, I'm honestly not surprised that him and people who share that same type of wealth demographic are not being taxed more under this administration, at least so far. But I also think there are a lot of other factors that are affecting these prices. Like you said, tariffs. Businesses are already reporting that they're raising their prices in preparation, which is very unfortunate for consumers that are already struggling to make ends meet. And as we know, the bird flu has been having an effect on the prices of eggs, and we're unsure about how we're going to navigate that situation. Prices are already skyrocketing, so it's just really unfortunate that the consumers are the one having to pay these higher prices during these tough times.
Exactly. It seems to me that, in my mind, Trump was elected first and foremost because of the inflation that occurred under the Biden administration.
Exactly.
And he said day one in office that he would work on getting prices down. And I don't see that happening. I see him instead firing people and doing a lot of other things which may or may not have value, while at the same time not doing enough really to help those who are struggling to put food on their table.
I agree. You know, I think, you know, our president has started this term. He's still really early on into it, and so it's going to take a lot of time for us to really feel the effect of some of the policies that he's focused on so far. At the same time, I think there are less important issues that might have his attention compared to inflation and the American people that are struggling. For example, the whole Gulf of Mexico debacle that we're now supposed to call Gulf of America. And, you know, it's caused issue with the press already and conflict. And I think renaming a body of water might not be our top priority as Americans right now.
That's certainly true.
Yeah.
People are concerned about putting food on the table, feeding their families, and that needs to be addressed as quickly as possible to try to get prices down so that people in this country can take care of their families as they desire to do. Particularly if, in fact, with some of the cuts which may be coming in the budget deal that's trying to work its way through Congress.
Yes.
And that is, of course, a reduction in the food stamp program, SNAP. And so if you reduce that as well, then that's going to put people in even a much more difficult situation, it seems to me.
I agree. People who are already in a tough situation, if they have to rely on our SNAP program to make sure that they have the food that they need for themselves, for their family. And I totally understand, you know, our government's need to eliminate waste and fraud. That is very, very important. But I do also agree that there might be a better way to go about the situation than what we've been doing so far.
Sure.
So hopefully we'll just see how these decisions are affecting Americans, and hopefully they'll make decisions and put in policies that will benefit Americans, right?
Sure.
But we'll have to see.
Sure.
We'll be right back after this short break to discuss some new Tennessee legislation, so stay tuned.
My Shiro doesn't always wear a cape, but she always has time for a hug, a smile, for going the extra mile. My Shiro stretches every dollar, puts in long hours, puts others first. But now it's your time, Mom. When you're ready to retire, we want you to be able to enjoy it. It's time to start saving now. A free 3-minute online chat can give you the personalized tips you need to start boosting your retirement savings today. Visit aceyourretirement.org/Shiro.
Thanks for sticking around. To close out our segment today, we'll be talking about some new bills that will affect Tennessee lawmakers. Last month, the Tennessee House of Representatives voted in favor of new immigration policies. There will be a new state enforcement office that provides funds to law enforcement and makes specific licenses for non-citizens. This bill would make it a Class E felony for public officials to support sanctuary policies. This type of felony indictment could lead to a 6-year prison sentence and a $3,000 fine. No Democrats in the Tennessee legislature voted in favor of this bill. The bill passed despite questions about whether it was constitutional. The American Liberties Union of Tennessee and the Nashville Metro Council Immigrant Caucus plan to challenge this new policy. White House Majority Leader William Lambert says it is easy to avoid criminal charges if officials do not vote in favor of sanctuary cities. Dr. Canervo, can you just explain real quick what sanctuary cities and policies are for those who are unaware?
Well, sanctuary city is one which does not want to cooperate with the with ICE, the immigration and Bureau, the one which regulates immigration in this country, and enforces it by sending people who are here illegally back out of the country to the home country from which they came. There are some cities which believe that immigrants are leaving very difficult situations. In some cases are leaving places where they cannot get enough to eat, where gangs of people are threatening them and their children, and so they come here for a better life. The normal immigration, legal immigration system is a very slow one, and people don't want to wait. And so they cross the border illegally, and the cities then will take them in and protect them by not cooperating with the immigration and enforcement system.
Exactly, like immigrants seeking asylum.
That's right. And of course, what Tennessee has done is to say that we're not going to have any of that in this state. There will be no sanctuary city. No city in this state will be allowed to protect immigrants in any way. And while I'm not concerned about the driver's license differential between citizens and non-citizens, that seems to me to be pretty neutral.
Yeah.
What I'm very bothered by is this notion that any office holder in any office in Tennessee, and of course they're particularly looking at those who may be in city councils, county councils, mayors, those folks who may speak up and say, you know, I don't think a sanctuary city is such a bad idea. Someone needs to help these immigrants and protect them, that they have committed a felony, and in my mind, they have violated the First Amendment. It seems to me that people in this country, particularly people in elected office, have the right to speak and to vote on behalf of their constituents. That's why they're there.
Exactly.
And if their constituents, a number of them, want us to think about protecting immigrants somehow, they have the right to make that argument under the First Amendment.
Exactly.
And for the state legislature to say that this is illegal tries to keep them from speaking their mind and changing policy if they wish to do that.
I agree. I was very shocked when I heard about this new bill passing in Tennessee. You know, I know we're a red state, and typically red states want to crack down more on immigration, which I understand, but I was very confused how this bill has constitutional standing, I suppose.
Well, in my mind, it does not, because it violates the right to free speech.
Exactly.
It violates the right to petition government for redress of grievances, meaning changing policy. It violates the opportunity to come together and petition government, to demonstrate against government. All of that is protected in the First Amendment very clearly.
True.
And for the state of Tennessee to make those things essentially illegal for one topic, sanctuary cities, just doesn't seem to me something that is very American. It's something I would expect from China or Russia maybe, but not a state in the United States.
I agree. I was very concerned about the details of this bill, and you're right, I don't think it aligns at all with our American values and what this country was founded on when we gained independence from Britain. And you know, since we're on the topic of immigration, a lot of other new policies have been on the news, circulating in the country, like our President Donald Trump's new $5 million gold card that's, you know, supposed to, I guess, replace the green Visa card. What do you think about that?
Well, that bothers me because, of course, it is directed at wealthy people. It's a way of giving wealthy people a path to citizenship by paying the United States $5 million. How many immigrants have that? And it's just another example of President Trump and Elon Musk playing to the wealthy and trying to give the wealthy something that no one else can have. And that just doesn't seem very fair in the United States.
I completely agree. I think this new conversation about this gold card caught me off guard a little bit. I think it fails to acknowledge, you know, Trump has a strong stance of wanting to keep certain immigrants out of this country to prevent crime and drugs being trafficked in, right? And so this $5 million gold card putting a price tag on whether or not someone can be considered an American, I think it fails to acknowledge that someone who has that kind of money, someone who's wealthy, can also be a criminal and not be beneficial for this country. And for them to prioritize wealth in that way, I think also disregards the 99% of Americans that aren't in that financial situation, and I think they should be our priority. And unfortunately, guys, that is all we have for you today. Thank you for tuning in for another edition of Inside the System. We will see you again after spring break. Bye.